Welcome back to Harbour Unboxed. It's not that time of the month. We normally do it towards the end of the month, but we've jumped ahead and we're doing a mid-month Q&A rather than the end of the month. We've had CES, so there's a few exciting things to talk about. Plus, we're in the middle of a bit of a heat wave here in Melbourne. So we thought, what better time to hop in the garage and do a long Q&A session.
Yeah, it's just perfect.
Yeah, if we feel the heat coming off the tin door and all that. So it's great. But anyway, plenty of questions. I think this is a record number of questions.
Bumper questions.
Over 300. So plenty of answering to be done. Let's get into it. Okay. You paying attention? You ready? This is the first question.
I'm ready. Ready as always.
It is from Say What? Do I have to read it like that?
I guess.
I did.
You have now, so you have to do it forever like that.
No, I'll do it at Say What. Edit the first one out.
All right. Make it difficult for me, sure.
First question is Radeon 7 a success or fail? I know we have limited info, only from AMD's keynote, but looks to be around RTX 2080 performance. Yeah, it's going to be a fail. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. Again, we haven't got one. We haven't reviewed it.
No, we don't even
have
one yet. So, yeah, we haven't signed an NDA on that. So we're free to say whatever we like. As you said, it seems like it's going to be around RTX 2080 performance for RTX 2080 pricing. Power consumption efficiency is probably not going to be as good. So,
yeah. Okay,
another Patreon question. This one is from Bootman. Is the Core i5 the same silicon as the i7? So is it just with part of the CPU fused off? Is it microcode that they've used to turn things like hyperthreading off? Or is it a completely different SKU or different silicon altogether? So basically they're asking, your Core i7 8700K, for example, has hyperthreading and it's unlocked, whereas, say, the Core i5 8400 has no hyperthreading and it's at a locked frequency. So how are they achieving that is basically the question. So I think, well, I know the answer. You know the answer.
Yeah,
I'll let Tim explain it.
I mean, we had to look this one up, but...
it's one of two options, basically.
Yeah, so it's definitely the same silicon because it's not worth making an entirely new die for each individual variant that you want to make. You want to have as few of those as possible, saves you a whole bunch of engineering costs. So the options were between your microcode updates or physical fusing, and it sounds like a while back it was all done just through microcode, but then people figured out ways to get around that. So now it is definitely fused in the hardware, so the things are just basically fully locked off on the hardware, so you can't ever enable them. Things like your cache size, your hyperthreading, those areas are definitely hardware fused at the moment.
Yep.
Pimp Daddy Jesus from our Discord chat has asked us this question. Do you think there will be a range of CPUs on the new X599 platform filling the gap between the old 18-core and the new 28-core? Since this segment is already a niche of a niche, I can't see budget-oriented shoppers looking for entry-level things at this price level. Based on the ridiculous Dominus Extreme, I have a hard time seeing entry-level X599 boards being a thing there either. So X599 seems to be the name that Intel is going to use for their Xeon W platform. So that's that much larger socket to fit that 28-core CPU that's effectively a Xeon Platinum that's just now a workstation CPU somehow. As for filling the gap between the 18-core and 28-core, I mean, maybe. It seems like they'd consider doing that because there's already Xeons that fill all those different core amounts. I guess the thing is, is this just meant to be a high-end workstation platform, in which case then you buy the 28-core, that's what's offered, you buy the expensive motherboard, you go all out? Or are they thinking, we should offer a $500 cheaper CPU that has slightly fewer cores? I'm not sure. But I think only the 28 core has been announced.
Yeah, I'd hate to guess, and that's all we would be doing. Yeah. I mean, there could be a 22, 24, 26, 28. Who'd be surprised by that kind of thing? It makes no sense, but then we had a 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So was that really necessary? But I think they'll probably stick with the 28 just as a premium product. It's kind of weird having one CPU for a platform, but then the platform's so ridiculous that it's really only a flagship part platform.
Yeah, I think it's that thing of when you're jumping into that platform, you're really all in on, you get the CPU motherboard combo, that's it. That's your workstation now.
Yeah, I think so.
There's not really any room to move there too much, but we'll see how that plays out when that's all released.
All right, next question is from Crossed Out. Because I know Gamers Nexus did a video on this recently, but at what point would you start recommending 7700K owners start looking towards an upgrade? Have you noticed any bottlenecks when using them, both in gaming and production environments? I've had mine for around 2 years before Ryzen was even a thing personally. Okay, well, I mean, for productivity type stuff, it's clearly a bottleneck if you're doing encoding or rendering or anything like that. I mean, it doesn't slow anything else down, it just does it as fast as it can do it. So if you want to do it faster, then you need an 8700K, 900K, or a Ryzen platform. As for gaming, I don't think there'll be really any games. Do you have you don't have a 7700K, do you?
No.
He's only got an 8700K and on. Yeah, look, I've used even the Haswell Core i7s, and they're still fine. Battlefield 5 multiplayer, no dramas there. I think the 7700K by memory did extremely well in my Battlefield 5 64-player multiplayer benchmark. So, I don't think so. I mean, if you would need a really high-end GPU, like something like your RTX 2070, so that's what your GTX 1080 type performance, Vega 64. It'll be perfectly fine for that. If you're buying an RTX 2080 Ti, then, you know, are we really talking about using 7th generation Intel Core processors? You'd just buy a 9900K. Either a 9900K or an 8700K or something like that. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see frame stuttering or any issues in any games, so you can certainly make do with that for the foreseeable.
Okay, another good question from our Discord chat here, this time about Intel Optane persistent memory. This person says they'll prove to be amazing in the server space starting in 2019, but when will this tech reach consumers, if ever, and will it change the way memory allocation works in general? Low latency persistent storage looks amazing for all upcoming workloads, including gaming. Yeah, it looks really cool to have that sort of, you know, basically a memory module that you slot into effectively a DIMM slot, and it just high bandwidth, low latency. Effectively, you're combining the benefits of having RAM with the benefits of having an SSD into the one sort of thing. Because it's only coming into the server space starting with Intel's upcoming platforms this year, you'd think it's a fair way from being available for consumers. I think Intel would have plans to produce it for consumers at some point. It's just that it's a fair way away. And the question as well, we were talking about this earlier, is potentially there would be a new technology that comes out by the time that it's ready for consumers that is superior, and they might just skip to that or something along those lines. So it's a question of how affordable that tech is. We're still not really sure. So that will play a big part in determining when that will come to consumers as well. But certainly it looks like a really promising technology and should become that sort of high-end storage device, probably superseding NVMe PCIe drives, because you'll always have your SATA drives as your affordable, you know, faster than a hard drive, massive capacities. We're seeing that now. But I think NVMe drives have there's a big opportunity to replace those with Optane persistent.
Yeah, I mean, if there was an option for it to come much sooner to the desktop, I don't think there's much demand, because NVMe storage, gamers aren't demanding that. It's kind of nice to have it at an affordable price, but it's not in high demand, because once you get in the games, you don't get more frames. You may load into the games that much quicker, which is for some people kind of nice. But yeah, it's not really going to change things massively like the first SSDs did.
Yeah.
The first SATA SSDs. That was a huge leap forward from hard drives. Phenomenal. But yeah, it'll be some time before we see something like that again, I think, if ever.
Yeah.
All right, Codgerface has a very important question, and he's not afraid to hide it. He says, possibly the most important question of all time. What is the official accepted acronym for Hardware Unboxed? So is it HUB, hub? Is it HWU, hua? Or is it HWUB, which is probably the most correct out of all of those? And then is it TYCF for Tech City, for Tech Yes City fan site? Which one? I think Brian would like the TYCF acronym for Hardware Unboxed. But, well, we've sort of always gone with hub, HUB.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, because unboxed, the B, it's not really a separate word.
Well, I don't think we ever I suppose we did in some videos, we referred to it, but it's something that everyone just sort of went with.
So we say hub because it's the easiest to say. If it's HWU, it's like, what? Nah. HWUB, Hub, yeah. Even HU, which would be the correct acronym. Hardware is one word, Unboxed is another word. It's like, it's not very good. Hub,
yeah,
it doesn't make the most sense, but it's the easiest to say, which is, I think, why we tend to go with that.
Yeah, it's not like something we use a lot. We don't refer to ourselves as Hub ever in the videos.
Yeah, we don't have a logo that has Hub on it. It's always Hardware Unboxed.
Yeah, so I don't think it's... Look, it's a super important question from Codgerface there, but I don't think it's it's going to change too much overall. So, yeah, we'll move on. Okay, question here from Just AJ. Hopefully I got that right. Discord member, I believe. Is that?
Yeah, that's right.
Will AMD's Navi take a big enough step away from their GCN architecture, and why is it important? Nice sort of speculative speculation there. Yep. I'm going to hand this over to Tim because he's our new speculation expert.
So again, we don't know what is coming up in Navi, so basically we're just having a bit of a guess here. I think it seems like it's still going to be based on GCN in some form. That seems to be the sort of leading theory at the moment. Mm-hmm. Couldn't say that's confirmed or anything. It's just a theory at this stage. So I think there'll be some changes to allow them to get better efficiency. Certainly they need to innovate in that area to make their products more competitive. So I think they'll be doing some things there, but I would imagine that it'll be similar enough to GCN in a lot of ways. And I think, though, it will be quite an important architecture for them because I expect this is the architecture that will be used for next generation consoles. And I suspect a lot of engineering work has gone into that architecture specifically for that because that seems to be lining up with the 2020 time frame. So, you get this architecture out late 2019. It's probably going to be right around the money for the next gen consoles combined with Zen 2. So, yeah, I think it'll be important for them in that sense, but it's too early to say about specific architecture features or anything like that.
Do you care to comment on pricing? I couldn't keep a straight face. All right, we'll move along swiftly. Get out of the deep waters there. And the next question is from Nick. I'm about to enter the world of 4K, 144Hz HDR G-Sync gaming. Godlike level stuff there. Obviously, there's no GPU in the world that can do 144 FPS and AAA titles on Ultra at 4K yet, but I'd like to eke out a little extra performance. What method would you guys recommend for getting a few extra frames? For example, set the resolution to 1440p, set it to 1800p, or just lower quality settings. So what do you reckon, Tim?
My first port of call would be, I always like to game at the native monitor resolution. So if I've got a 4K monitor, I want to be gaming at 4K. Now, that's not saying I'd personally buy a 4K monitor. I'd probably buy a 1440p monitor just to get that better balance of performance to quality. So I guess I would be lowering the quality settings. I think you probably still struggle to get up to that 144 FPS mark.
Yeah.
But certainly if you get to around 100 FPS or 80 to 100 with, say, medium to high quality, that's probably what I'd go for.
Yeah, I would go downscaling personally. Having said that, though, it's like a lot of these questions whenever we talk about benchmarking, FPS, performance, all that sort of stuff. It really depends on the game. So Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I assume you're using an RTX 2080 Ti because that would make sense with a $2,000 US panel. So if you're using an RTX 2080 Ti, Tomb Raider looks pretty awesome. Use Tim's optimized guide. You get like 80 FPS. And for Tomb Raider, that's plenty. Game's a lot of fun, looks amazing. You're playing Battlefield 5, I'd probably downscale there, just ever so slightly. And most, like Fortnite even, well, you don't need to in Fortnite, it's probably a bad example, but you can downscale on that title as well. So
especially at 4K, you can turn it down to like 90, 80% resolution, and you're not getting a
like your 1800p sort of setting would work well. I'm more for doing that than actually reducing quality settings that will have a noticeable impact. I know going from ultra to high in a lot of titles doesn't, but I'd rather have just better quality shadows and things like that rather than the sharper resolution.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, this is another question from our Discord chat. Trying to find a decent priced HDR Ultrawide with 100 Hz forgot to mention with LFC. Any suggestions? So the answer to that question is there are no decent HDR ultrawide panels at the moment. You can get a lot of ones that have okay-ish, but HDR. But if you see my videos sort of discussing what you need for an HDR panel, which is high brightness, contrast, and color space, it's usually the contrast of the three metrics that these monitors fail because they don't have local dimming. So right now, there's no ultra-wide panels that have good enough local dimming, in my opinion. There are some that do have local dimming in large zones, but I'd prefer high zone count. And so far, that there is an ultra-wide monitor coming with a large local dimming array. I think it's 512 zones. Okay. It's supposed to be 3440 by 1440, 200 hertz, but those have been delayed and we're not quite sure when that's coming. That would be the first decent HDR ultra-wide panel. But for now, if you're buying an ultra-wide, I probably wouldn't look into the HDR performance. I'd just sort of discount that and buy it as an SDR panel because a lot of the panels just simply aren't good enough right now, in my opinion. Blue Flame has asked us in our Discord chat, have you guys considered benchmarking games with custom quality settings? I feel like spending money just to game on the Ultra preset is a complete scam because in 99% of cases it's impossible to tell the difference between Ultra and High, and in most cases I would argue it's close to impossible to tell the difference between Medium and Ultra. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're sort of exploring a little bit. I've been doing the optimization guides for sort of the second half of last year's games. And that's sort of to do exactly what you've been saying, is to find the settings that give the best balance between visual quality and performance. And often that's not running it at ultra, it's running it at a combination of medium, high, and ultra settings. Usually tends to be the right sort of mix. And yeah, I mean, it's a very good point, is that, you know, you don't necessarily need to run on ultra to get, you know, the best visual quality. You can get a very tiny reduction, but get massive performance improvements from turning a few things down. And that is something that we want to, you know, continue to do going forward because it's important to know these sort of things, I think.
Yes, well, it depends on what the content is trying to do. So if it's a game benchmark, we're obviously evaluating the game performance. So what kind of hardware you need to play that game. Generally for my big sort of, they're not day one, but my soon after release 40, 50, 60 GPU benchmarks. Presets make sense there because Tim hasn't spent days and days going through all the settings and working out what works best where. So I just choose, generally I choose a preset, and then if there's something like God Rays or something that completely wrecks the performance, I turn that off manually and let you guys know. But the point is, in that instance, we're looking at game performance. Now, if I'm doing a big GPU comparison, I'm not too concerned with the quality settings there because I'm more just wanting to test everything under the same conditions to see, you know, because if it's 30% faster with Ultra, say an RX 580 versus a 1060, not that you would see a margin that big with those two, but that you would see that at other quality presets. And I do quality scaling in the day one stuff, and generally we see from low, medium, high, Ultra, similar scaling between GPUs. So in that instance, it doesn't really matter. So really, again, as I said, it depends on what the video is looking into.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are expecting from that coverage to see ultra settings because I guess using custom settings is more of a niche thing still. I think a lot of people are still just interested in, you know, what frame rate am I going to get in this game with my card on ultra settings?
There's a few things. People don't like you cherry picking the settings. They like to go with the presets that are there. I mean, obviously opinions vary, but we can... It takes a bit of it off us. If we just go, look, we test every game with Ultra unless there's something obvious that everyone agrees with, like hairworks or whatever that should be turned off, it makes it easier for us. If we start managing what we're turning on, people are like, oh, you turned that on because it favors NVIDIA or AMD or whatever. So it removes a little bit of that crazy. Obviously, the more of that you can remove from that kind of content, the better. And I have started using like a hub type of quality settings, which I think a lot of you do like because you watch Tim's guides. But there are a few people who don't like that because then they're like, well, what settings are these? Now I have to go back and find that video to find what settings you've used. And I kind of get that. Again, though, as long as they're all tested under the exact same conditions and there's nothing that really sways the results in favor of one card, it doesn't matter too much. Okay, that concludes part one. Plenty of good questions. And as usual, we do like to split these up so it doesn't run a whole, well, 20 minutes I think we target. So hopefully that was 20 minutes of awesome viewing and we can do it all again tomorrow. But anyway, thank you for watching part 1 of the January Q&A, our first one of 2019. Hopefully we start off with a bit of a bang.
Good questions, I reckon.
Loads of good questions. And yeah, we'll get to the rest of them in part 2. So yeah, thanks for watching. You can like, subscribe, follow us on Patreon if you want to do that. And I think that is about everything. See you again next time.
See ya.
Beat ya.
I can't.